On today's Minute of the Apes, Kris Kristofferson and I are very much hair bros right now. And I wonder, based upon that sad little braid he's got on one side, if he's ever considered full-on Viking braids.
Do you know he is me and Bobby McGee?
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Divine bomb.
The only good human is a dead human! Where there is fire, there is smoke. Now fight the ape! The minute of the apes! The minute of the apes! The minute of the apes! The minute of the apes!
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd, sitting there silently as Sean.
Hey, I'm not silent no longer.
No longer. And with the Viking braid and the bit of music trivia that I was able to toss in, it's Richard. How are you today, Richard?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
All right.
I'm good because I'm excited because probably one of my favorite troubadour musicians is in this movie finally. So here I have something to be excited about finally. Yay, Chris.
Yay.
All right, so here we are. Does anybody have anything to start off the week? Besides the fact that you're both playing Star Wars
I know.
Galaxy of Heroes.
We
Right
talked
in front
about
of
it
you
so
as you're
much.
talking.
We talked about it so much. I'm just like doing some little things. I'm updating all my pilot characters because I realize I've got like 20 characters I need to upgrade so that my ships can finally have all their checks done and I'll at least be done with that. All right, anyway.
You know, we had a little bit of a moment that Sean usually, and he did in this moment again, tells us, save this for in between. And I had to throw down the gauntlet of, like, nobody cares about Star Wars Galaxy Heroes anymore. But we did have, about a 5-10 minute stop
Yes,
down talking about it?
Yeah.
Look, it's like
I'm
Planet of the
turning it
Apes.
off.
If you go down a
There.
rabbit hole and you
It's
start
off.
it, you can't ever stop it. So
It's off.
it is what it is. Speaking of that, we've down the rabbit hole up to 16 minutes of Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. And so,
right.
Sean, tell us what's going on.
We're going to start minute 16 with Davidson looking around on Dagobah for Yoda and ends with what appears to be an ape chasing down humans.
All right, here it comes. Minute 16, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
As minute 16, we have an Oberon's worth of apes and humans and 2 displaced pods worth of humans and apes.
All right, here comes a visual recap. We get a little bit of Marky Mark Davidson looking around Dagobah, as Sean said, and it is very Dagobah-esque. We get shots of the jungle with a little bit of fog, so the light does not beam through directly. We see him again spinning. It is spinning, spinning, spinning. He runs forward, and as he runs to a point in the jungle, we see shrubs and greenery moving around, is something coming towards him, and it is Kris Kristofferson springing out of the jungle, very hairy, with a little bit of a tear under his eye if you kind of look at it, bearded. Then we see a very pretty blonde model-esque lady. They run past him. Marky Mark looks off in the jungle as something mysterious begins to run towards them, and we get one final frame where something falls out of a tree. Okay, so here we are. We are on the planet. We don't know the name of said planet. We don't know anything other than that we've crashed down on a green planet.
We know that they want to spend 25 seconds showing off their set design of the forest that we will probably only see once. Well, no, you know what? I bet we come back to it because somehow he's got to. I have watched this. I have not watched this all the way through, and preparation for this. I'm just going minute by minute, so I can't remember. He probably comes back to his pod at the end somehow. So they shot this on over 2 days, so they wanted to show off the set that they built.
Yeah. So I can't remember where I made this note, and if I end up jumping to it later in the week, but I find myself immediately missing the first film. And as much as Sean and I, because this was prior to Richard joining, Sean and I said, my God, how long
First
are they going to
half hour,
walk
yeah.
across the desert? But I miss some of that. A little bit of the boom, we're strangers in a strange land. It's foreign. We don't know what's going on.
This is basically the cornfield run from the first movie, right?
Right.
Yeah,
It
and
is
we're-
like literally like they dropped in that moment right away.
I mean, and including credits, we're 16 minutes into this movie, and they are way jumping in front of the first movie. Yeah.
I wish that instead of all the, hey, I'm going to speak to the monkey on board, send him on a trip, we have to find out where did he go, I'm going to get my monkey. I wish he had just been in a pod right away, out doing some space work with his monkey in another pod. And
that's how you start it.
That's what I mean.
Cut to the movie, opening credits, fade to black, cut to meh, 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 and alarm's going off. What's going on? I'm getting my monkey back. And then meh, 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 meh. And then,
It'd be much more exciting. Again, I don't know that Marky Mark is the right person to kind of give me Spaceman in a strange place. I feel lost. I don't know what's going on, but this just feels so incredibly rushed. Richard, you look like you're chomping on your lip to keep from
Champing at
saying
the bit.
something.
No, I was gonna mention. I'm usually a big fan of Danny Elfman, but the score itself is in this moment too rich and dramatic and not eerie
Right.
or sinister enough to build the moment. I feel like I'm on a giant fun adventure. I don't really feel
Right.
the tension of what I should feel
It's
at this moment.
Jumanji rather than Danger. Yeah.
Yeah, and you are correct. And the thing is, this moment starts off with a rustling in the distance, like 20 seconds into it, and so we see him like briefly run towards it. I
That
mean,
bouncy run.
Would you run towards
To
the
it-
rustling, or would you hide?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, let's just so people can think of it. I'm going to play back the first little bit with the soundtrack just so we get that in mind.
That's wild.
So we have spooky undercurrent,
A little bit, yeah.
little percussive. Ting, 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 ting. Because I have an opinion of what's vastly different. These swells let us know there's danger immediately.
instead of letting the atmosphere know there's danger.
Right.
Yeah.
And already we have drums telling us that there is coming in.
And then the healthiest man in the tribe, Kris Kristofferson, leading everybody from danger.
And we get
Daughter?
monkey screams. I do have to say that moment, I'm going to pause at that moment right there where we see the monkey run
And
across the tree.
which finally gave me what I wanted from the first five
I-
movies, them acting like apes.
I
Yes.
thought that too. I thought there's a very look. There are things to applaud in this movie,
Yes.
and they get that so incredibly right.
They did a 3-dimensional move instead of just always on one plane. They're using other planes. To do
However,
things.
I actually found a moment later in this week where I'm going to bring that up again, just because I kind of wonder if the original way of a human-esque monkey is not a little scarier in a way. But here's what's missing for me in that scene is the serene element of walking into a field and seeing mute humans that are eating corn or whatever they were eating.
and then they get spooked. Yeah.
But it's not only that, the musicality of those rods that the apes have, the
yeah. They're
hitting
making
that, and that becomes like its own music that's terrifying because it doesn't sound human. This is so orchestral. This is so percussive. This is so driving that it's like,
yeah,
it's like seriously, it's too much.
it's too grand for what we need to build for this particular moment.
Right. I mentioned off the top, I am a huge Kris Kristofferson fan. I always have been. His songwriting as a musician, me and Bobby McGee made famous by Janis Joplin. That alone, if you just wrote that. But this man also wrote Help Me Make It Through the Night, which is a country staple. If you've ever played country music as a musician, you've played that song. It is just amazing. Then he goes on to be a member of the Highwaymen with Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash. So, Jesus, you're a part of that. And did you know the man is a Rhodes Scholar?
I did not know that.
It's like, holy crap, he is a very smart individual. Now, Rhodes Scholar was
But
always
he's in this film, right?
I'm sorry. Well, he did make a bad decision here.
He was also in some
He's in Stars Born with
Ghost Rider movies.
when I took Abby to see Stars Born with Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga, I was like, look, no matter what, and Bradley Cooper was great in that movie. There's just no denying he could play a drunk role. My favorite drunk is always going to be Kris Kristofferson because I'm like, damn, that bitch can drink. I mean, it just looked like it.
Not Ghost Rider. He was in Blade. That's
Blade.
right,
So you said Ghost Rider.
I was like,
Blade.
I mixed him and Sam Elliott or whoever was in Ghost Rider.
You know, Rhodes Scholar, by the way, was always that thing my mom would say, well, they're a Rhodes Scholar. I'm like, are they on the road? What, it's literally one of those things that I'm not entirely sure.
RHODES versus, I always thought like a road. I thought that meant that they like went from school to school, so they were learning on the road.
I kind of thought the same thing. But we've got him. We've also got Estella Warren, which if you ever... So you look at this, and she is... I guess Linda Harrison is model-esque. She's a very pretty woman. Mm-hmm. Estella Warren, if you ever go read a bit about her history, was, as far as I could find, one of the first people in one of these franchises that really suffered the online bullying, where people were just unmerciful in their nastiness towards her in this film. Look, does she look like she's a supermodel stuck in the middle of Dagobah? Yeah. But why do we automatically have to say if someone's pretty? The movies are made of pretty people.
Well, and I was going to mention this. The script called for Kris Kristofferson's character to be decorated with intricate markings, and
they wanted to tattoo him.
Right, and they didn't put any of those on their faces, which I can kind of respect because they're just a bunch of white people with suddenly tribal markings on their faces, which would be a little offensive if you ask me. But they also look a little too pretty.
Yeah,
they do.
They don't look like they didn't put some sweat on them or their hair's a little tousled.
They don't look like they live in the wild.
They don't look like they live in the wild. They could have done something to make them a little dirtier somehow.
Perfectly kempt beards, yes, long hair, Richard, we understand, but it's well taken care of. They've got what are ostensibly, if we were to wear it, probably comfortable clothing that they've got on.
Yeah.
They're not, they're not running around in their skivvies looking dirty.
When we get to the shots of more kind of traffic of people, we're not really getting too close on them. We just see kind of long hair moving around. I can kind of forgive that, but the first shot of the two of them is just a little pretty, and they do that almost comedic. Let's both look right, left.
Everybody
left,
stop.
right,
Yeah,
right, left.
everybody make sure to look everywhere.
Let's go.
We know what we're running from. Why are we looking around?
Well, I also think anytime that you have somebody run forward a frame like that, I almost feel like Marky Mark's reaction should be like ducking backwards because that's intrusive to us when he comes to that frame. Bam, he's in it. And Marky Mark just has a, huh? Should he not? Okay, he's intruded in my space. Oh, there are humans on this planet, which I don't know where I am. By the way, I can breathe. I haven't taken a soil sample, a water sample, an air sample like they did in the first film. Everything just happens to work for me.
Everything is coming to me. I'm not having to discover anything.
Yeah.
So they all brush past him. We then see the ape in the tree running
from right to left,
running like an ape, or what we
in the branches,
in our mind would look unusual. That spooks him to turn and run with everybody else. As my first glimpse of what's about to happen, I still would have made this a little creepier. I still would have done something a little more.
There's something
to make this a little more menacing. Seeing somebody,
there's something missing.
Someone scurry across a tree. I don't know if our Marky Mark that would spook me so much.
I mean, I think if they had no music in this scene, that would have helped. First of all, just no music, just the cracking of the branches. You hear a little muttering of humans, and then breathing heavy, and then all of a sudden they're crashing through, and also you're hearing the hoots and the hollers of the apes in the back.
Right.
That was one of the most interesting things that if you ever look into John Williams and how he says he scores a film, he's like, you must understand there are times when the action is more impactful if you haven't done music. And then when music lands, it's like, oh my God, now we're escalating here. So you go watch Jaws, you go watch Star Wars, the original one. Those moments where there's shootouts and things happening and then finally the horns, da, 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 da,
look at the Death Star when it blows up. The music literally goes away for a minute, and then
silence is its own music.
Yeah,
and I think that you're onto something here. I also think Marky Mark, and I don't blame him for it. I think he may be directed to the wrong reaction, because if you kind of watch the moment, and it's all shot one together, but the moment before he sees the scampering across the tree and the moment after, it is simply a kind of wide-eyed, open mouth look around.
Right. What?
If I saw that ape and I saw people running and I saw something scampering across,
fall
I
onto
would
your
simply
ass,
I'd go, what the fuck? And I would be terrified.
Well, I mean, we're gonna move in tomorrow's minute, and what happens in the first few seconds of that is, to me, what should have prompted him to freak out. We'll talk about it tomorrow, I'm sure.
What would have been interesting, I mean, it would have involved more cast, a bigger budget probably, is if there were 50 people running past him, and it's almost like the Lion King, where he's caught in a stampede and he's being
Pulled,
elbowed,
yeah.
knocked around, fallen down, stepped on. I mean, these people are terrified, so there should be 100 people running past him, just like, what the... And that's where the real terror comes from, because it's not only what are they running from, but I'm getting beat up as I'm trying to... I've just crashed, and now I'm being trampled.
I want to know how many extras are on the side off the camera we don't see, holding all those vegetation that they're running in front of. Like, they're constantly like flapping around all their green stuff. I'm like, it's just...
I shot something once and Shelly was there. Shelly does not give a crap about how films are made. But I shot something where I needed someone to look like they were running through something.
Run the branch over.
Well, what you did is especially if you put a tight frame, you run in place and they look back over their shoulder. Well, we needed it to look like they were getting cornered. So we had people beside them that would just slap them. And I said, don't be like you see them, and don't smack them. Just make it like... And then just do it. And she was like, this ruins everything. And I'm like, I said, I guarantee you there are films that you have seen where someone looks like, because their arms are moving, that they're running, and it's so tight on them, you can't tell. That's how it's done.
What do you think they're doing when they're driving a car on a set? They're just taking the light and blocking it, and then unblocking it.
Did you
and
see the
blocking
footage,
it,
by the
and
way,
unblocking
from
it.
the Batman, how they did the car scenes? It's now with that environment,
Where
they did the Mandalorian.
void or whatever,
And they made rigs so the car could be on a gimbal. It had rain within it with also that background. So it's brilliant, because then you can do the reflections on it. You can put Robert Pattinson. You do not want to put him in danger.
Yeah.
And now you can get the reflections of the surrounding area on the windshield with the rain. It was like, man, that's some cool shit.
It still fascinates me, that thing that it renders the entire environment, but the only thing that really matters is where the camera is pointing.
Yep.
So that's the only part that's in focus as far as the environment cares. The rest is just kind of for the lighting
Ambient
that
lighting.
needs to be there.
Yeah.
So if you were to look 5 feet to the left of where the camera's looking at, it might look all fucked up. But as far as the camera cares, that's the right lighting coming for that.
That stuff, when, especially now watching behind the scenes of that, when it's Catwoman and he up on that building and you can see the cityscape. I thought
it was on a building.
I did too. I was like, that was so beautifully done. There was nothing. Now, occasionally when you watch Mandalorian, you can see how that, hey, okay, I get this. This is a limited budget. But when you put this out there, it changes a lot of filmmaking. Back to this.
Sorry, back to this movie.
I wanted to say, and we'll see some of this when we get to the current trilogy, where the apes use the trees and they're up around like that. Okay, so if you go back to the first film, what was kind of terrifying were the low-angle shots coming through, and we saw the ape was bigger than life.
Yeah.
These apes, I wish we had seen a little more scampering in the tree. If I'd seen one or two more, and the attack was coming from above more,
Well, we don't know what the next minute has.
Well, I'm just saying in this moment, as it builds, you do get, there's a moment where we see something jump out of the tree, and we can see a little bit of the costume. We don't know what it is, but if his eyes stay on the plane of what's directly, he looks up, but his eye is here, the threat's here. This would have had that same horror, I think, if you had constructed it to be more coming from above downward. And that might have helped. There are a lot of things, and I think you're right. We can talk about it more, but there are a lot of things that could escalate it.
And you were talking about, production, and we joked about the plants briefly. This is of the era, so this isn't unusual for the 2000s, but it's very obvious they're on a set and it's lit a certain way, and nothing there that we're looking at is a real forest, and so it takes me out of it a little bit. That I'm not. I feel like I'm on a set.
Yeah,
like I'd walk around this plant line
Agreed.
over here and find the hallway to the restroom.
It does.
Okay,
feel,
that one exactly. I agree. I wasn't thinking the halt of the restroom, but that is funny. I
It
like
does
that.
feel
You're
like
right.
you're walking through the gardening section of a Lowe's or something like
Right,
that, where it's
right.
got every type of plant. It's got the fern here. It's got the elephant leaf there. It's got whatever, it's got every type of plant.
And it's very overgrown.
There's no sunlight coming through. You mentioned the mist that's kind of obstructing any natural daylight, but things are lit so that you can see the green. And there's nothing sinister about it. It's like,
Right.
but it's of the era. Don't get me wrong. Like I can't fault it for not putting it into kind of something more modern or even older than it is when they actually would go on location. This was definitely filmed in a studio.
And I can't fault them for the fact that you're trying to make a foreign world, a foreign environment. Maybe their jungles, when jungle infestation happens, it is truly overgrown. But you go back to like Dagobah. One of the things that makes it look so swampy and everything is the fact that it's open. You can see the trees, you can see the
True.
threads,
Wet
you know
pit
all these
there, yeah.
things. And this just feels enclosed. And I actually think that actually takes away from some of the fear too,
Yeah.
because it's almost like a warm blanket holding me in.
Yeah, the density takes away a little bit of the choreography of what the threat and the humans
Right.
are doing right now. They're like, we're just going this direction.
So we applaud the idea of the monkeys up in the tree. We just have issues with the build up, the execution of it.
Yes.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
I think that's it for the minute. Anybody got anything else?
That's it for me.
Well, that was a good one. We really got into a lot of stuff today. So we'll be back tomorrow. Everyone have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Come in